Welcome to Psychotechnologies.
Is it? Okay. I don't understand this. It says like sending and then it says done and then the new window comes up and then it's streaming. So if we go like 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Oh, it's already been.
Yeah, it says it shows up on my phone.
Welcome
okay. To Psychotechnologies. I see. I had it right.
Yeah, you were right. Okay, that's interesting. So I'll know when I push that. It says like live streaming. That's the thing. Okay, welcome to Psychotech Live. Woo! All right. Today we're planned for some fun. So feel like I should backstory. Daniel occasionally writes descriptions and titles of our live stream, and there are these spelling errors in it. And I'm like, I said to him the other day, hey, that's a lot of spelling errors. You know, I use this spell check everywhere. That's a lot of spelling errors. And Daniel's like, oh yeah, I have dyslexia. And I said to him, oh, hey, let's try and cure that thing. Maybe we can work on it on the spot and see where we go. So I've never worked with dyslexia before. And so I don't know what will happen. But it strikes me that dyslexia is like an inside the mind thing. And so maybe we got a shot at undyslexia you.
Yeah, it's not called dyslexia anymore. It's called something else. It's called learning disability with specific in comprehend or something. But okay. When I was diagnosed back when I was a kid and I was diagnosed, they gave me the diagnosis of dyslexia.
Okay, cool. Well, I guess I would start with what's it like having dyslexia? What do you notice? Like, what are your symptomy things?
Right. So it's hard for me to tell what's ADD and what's dyslexia, but I've never been able to spell well. Although I currently spell better than I ever have in my life, and like by a significant margin. And it's still at the point where Eliot's like, you're making a lot of spelling errors.
There's like an extra letter sometimes, or there's like, and you don't. The thing is, if I had typed that out, I would have after looked at the word and gone, oh, there's an extra letter in there.
Yeah, there was something with my autocorrect. My autocorrect switched that for that specific one.
Yeah. But there's also like a not going back and checking or something, which I just, it's a habit for me now, but maybe there was a time when I didn't do that either.
Yeah, so I usually go back and check. But if it's like there was the day I was tired during the day, but I wanted to get a bunch of work done still. And so yeah, like those, when I'm doing things, it winds up being, yeah, it's extra steps and it's extra work to do that. So it's like writing is actually very hard for me because I'll be writing and I'm having to do my thoughts and getting them out, and then it's not coming out properly. So it's coming out as just like gibberish. Nonsense.
What about reading? Do you have problems reading?
Reading is, so when I was a kid, I had trouble reading. When I was in grade 1, I couldn't read, and then we did a lot of work on that, and then I was able to read. And then as soon as I was able to read, I just read everything I could.
Nice.
So I was a voracious reader until more recently. I don't really read that much anymore. But
so the dyslexia never really stopped your reading. It's more like the writing or the creating.
Yeah. I did have trouble reading out loud. So like reading out loud even in high school was very broken kind of. But reading to myself in the comprehension, I could read very quickly. Like I was the fastest reader I knew, and like by far. I mean, not by far. Like there's some other people that were really fast, but I could read like extremely fast, where I would just like sort of look at the thing and it'd just be done. And then the comprehension was there as well, so I'd be able to explain to you exactly what's going on. But I didn't do descriptive words and stuff.
Okay.
So even now, I'm more like a concept guy anyway. So that's the thing I like. So if they're like, they'll have a sentence with a beautiful glowing pink diamond was sparkling in the sky. It was sparkling, reflecting from the sky. I'm like, okay, he's got a diamond. Next.
Right. So you're naturally sort of filtering out the extra.
Yeah. Which now I'm much more, I'm taking it because I am trying to write, and I do realize that other people aren't necessarily like that. And also for me, if I'm reading something that's just fact, like it's not interesting. It's got to get the energy going inside.
Okay. Do you know like when you first? So you said you were first grade, you couldn't read, or is that? I'm really bad at this. Do kids usually read? Kids usually reading like before first grade?
I think they learn around grade 1.
Okay.
Or a lot. I think some kids knew how to read and some kids didn't. By that point, like I knew letters. Maybe I could read, but I couldn't like read. Like I could, like I would know the letters and I could sound them out, but I couldn't. I was reading. I remember the first book was Goosebumps, and to go through and read, like to read it as something that would be enjoyable and I would understand the story, was not the first one was not fun. But then the second one was.
Right.
I actually weirdly still have this memory where my mom was teaching and we went through it together, like we read it together for the first one, and then the second one, she said, "Oh, start without me. I gotta go put your siblings to sleep." And then by the time she was done with that, she came back. I was halfway done the book.
Wow, that's a very fast reader.
And the first one took, I don't know, took weeks probably to get through. And then that was it. Then we stopped reading together because I would just I could just read by myself, and then very quickly I could read faster than her.
Right. So your reading sounds pretty great. It's the writing or the creating that really has the bugs.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah. And then the writing I did do a lot of work writing. Like the handwriting I still can't really do.
Oh,
I can do it.
You have an example of your handwriting? This is, for the record, this is my handwriting. I don't know if you can see that so clearly. It's pretty messy. It's also probably backwards on video, but do you have a handwriting? I have a like hobby interest in handwriting analysis as well that I don't talk about very much.
Yeah, I do notice when I write sometimes like I don't want other people to read what I'm writing.
Oh, funny. Yeah, and that'll mess up make your handwriting messy.
Yeah.
The trouble is, like, if I can't read my handwriting either, that's a big problem.
Yeah, that was the problem. I stopped writing because I couldn't read it. and no one could read it. I couldn't read it. Nobody else could read it. So why am I writing things if I can't read? And if you can't write, like there's a certain thinking that happens when you're writing. And now, but the typing is a lot better because the typing, you just push the letter and then it's clean. But there is something with the spelling that can make it pretty terrible.
Yeah, what is it about spelling that? Do you have any idea of like what is it?
It makes no sense.
Oh, spelling doesn't
make sense to me.
As in, we spell words in funny ways.
Yeah, like what do you guys do it this way?
Right.
Like if it was just pure phonetics, I don't know. Maybe I could have learned phonetics writing, and that would have been easier. But that's not really a thing, I think.
I want to zoom in on that thing. That the thing you said that spelling makes no sense. I'm like, that's like that. The way you expressed it was like bigger than, we're talking about writing or reading or whatever, but like spelling makes no sense. It like it has this like what?
I feel trapped in a world of like someone did like quickly did a first draft of spelling and then that was it. Now we're locked there forever.
I'd be curious to see if our language changes in the future, the dialect or the like a simplified spelling version.
Yeah, the online stuff is actually much easier now because you can do what WUT, right? Or not that what is hard to spell, but I guess it's like the evolution of leet speak or something. I don't know what you call that now, but
And we accept it most of the time.
yeah, the texting got me much better into it.
Right.
Because I could text people and there was a lot of room for
Sure.
like people would go out of the way to interpret it. Spelling errors didn't really matter that much. The autocorrect, the auto filling words as well. When you do the like, you only have to get that like most of the way. Do you want to talk about?
Yeah, autocomplete.
There's autocomplete, and then there's also which is also helpful, and then there's also
guess.
Huh?
It guesses which word you're going for.
Yeah, you just do the
the swipe.
Yeah, swipe.
Right. So all of these tools have sort of made your life easier, but there's still an underlying spelling makes no sense. I'm curious, like, I want to point in the direction of the emotions there. When you say like spelling makes no sense, like what is that emotional experience that you're
It's very frustrating. It's like there's a secret code and everybody knows the code except for me, and I have to like brute force this code every single time, and sometimes I get it and sometimes I don't. And it's way too much work to just put down a single word. And so if I'm having I'm trying to have a complex thought and I want to get it down, like complex thoughts are hard, right? In and of themselves, like thinking could be hard. And then expressing it in a way that somebody else can understand could be hard. And then there's that medium again. So now it's, the stuff gets exponential as well, right? The difficulty.
Okay, so you said frustrated.
Yeah.
Right. So I want to move us towards that frustration. So we're going to bring it up. We're going to like feel it a bit stronger. And
I'm feeling it a little bit now. Yeah.
Right.
I'm trying to express this. It's a little frustrating.
Right. So there's this thing that happens is as we start talking about it, it starts crowding in. You're getting frustrated and even trying to like navigate the territory of this thing.
Yeah.
So let's check, like, where do you feel it in your body? Let's go for that.
It's like a weird on my back, kind of like a little tingling in my head. It's like a makes me want to move in or something, or lean in, and I don't know, a little bit of anger. Yeah, like there's anger and frustration. It's not egosyntonic right now, but it feels like it could be, and it's not really up there, but it feels like it's not like the anger necessarily anger. It's like the beginning of anger and frustration where I can feel it coming on.
Is there like a heat, or
Maybe.
I get a lot of pairing of heat and anger, so that's why I'm like, is there heat?
Yeah, I'm definitely getting like fighting imagery.
Oh, like mental representation image of fighting.
Yeah,
like fight with something.
Yeah, like this is how I should feel when I'm in the boxing room.
Right. This is totally a confusing state for trying to write stuff. Imagine every time you try to write stuff, you're like distracted. Well, this is the thing. We should maybe like clear this out so that you can just write without getting this thing.
That would be very nice.
Yeah, right.
Also, I joined the AI. There's this AI world building thing that I am now part of a group. We're gonna do this.
That might be difficult if you're like having difficulty writing and getting frustrated all the time.
Yeah, but we got 5 people going on, so I only have to write like 1,000 words over the next 3 months.
Oh wow. Okay.
So I feel like I could do it.
Yeah,
I can write. It's just hard, and I do use these things that I'm part of as motivation, so that I don't have to hold, because when you're writing, you want to write the story you want to write, and so it's to come up with the frame, to hold the frame and the motivation and the thing is it's more work. So here it's very narrowed down, and then there's other people around, so I have like context in which a lot of that mental work is being done by other people now. So we
Right.
check a little piece of it.
Nice. All right, so let's move towards this anger frustration thing a bit more. Let's hang out with it. There's from the general therapeutic modality, as you hang out with it, I have the curious question of, I'm curious what it wants. Like, does it want something in particular? Does it want to move somewhere?
It wants to like break and destroy stuff, but that's and frustrated and tear up the papers and cry.
Right.
That's very anger thing.
Right. Well, that's an anger thing, and also it's like maybe it was very frustrating at one point to learn to read.
It was very frustrating.
Right. So, and this is a cool trick we can do here. Do you get a sense of how old you were when you first had this anger? Like, does this give you an age? Sometimes.
It was like all through elementary school.
Okay.
It was like all of my elementary school.
Right. So we're going to try a internal family systems trick. Can you tell this anger, hey, we're a whole bunch older. We're not in elementary school anymore. We don't have to be angry at this at all because, we're just, everything's different now.
Everything's different, but it's the same thing. Okay, so I'm telling.
No, we can't. We can't just do that. Sometimes that works. Sometimes it doesn't.
Yeah, I'm telling the anger that, and the anger saying everything's different, but like in this area, like this is the same.
Mm-hmm.
Right? It's not like objectively speaking, I am much better at this now, but it's still like it's still there. I still can't write like other people. I'm reading Scott Alexander, the way he's describing the writing. I'm like, oh, I want to have that.
So when you said that the anger says that this is the same, right? Things are different now, but this is, what's it mean when it says this? What's it talking about?
This frustration and this inability to express myself. Inability to reach my potential, which I hate that terminology, but to I have this potential and I can't actualize it.
Okay, so let's hang out with that for a bit. That like anger, frustration, I have this potential, I can't seem to hang out. I can't seem to reach it. What do you notice as you hang out with this feeling? Is it still in your back?
Distraction there. So it's pointing somewhere else. Yeah, it does a distraction where it's like, okay, well, maybe, so like there are other ways of expressing yourself than through writing. And there's something comforting about that. And then it kind of slides away from the anger.
It's a very smooth trick you got going there. I'm sure it works all the time, but also we do in fact want to stay with the anger and resolve it well, as well as having access to multiple forms of expression. Yeah. So if you go back, you keep hanging out with it, is there more?
It does slide off. It is very sliding.
Do you have any sense of where the anger is coming from? You said it's on your back. Does it come from there, or does it come from somewhere else and go to there?
Oh, well, it feels like it's in the air and the space. It's in between us. Yeah, it's been moving around actually during this conversation.
Yeah, okay. And I do want to point out that sometimes when things move, they just sort themselves out. They know they go somewhere better, and they're like, "Oh, that's better." But you've never paid attention to it, and so it never did the thing that it was trying to do. Just kind of got stuck halfway there. Sometimes,
yeah. but also now, like, so now I'm here. Okay. So we passed the anger, and now we're done.
But you, so my sense is that there's still something in the air. You still feel like
problem.
Right.
So yeah. So I mean, yeah, like this is a pattern of my life where I'll get to the thing, it'll be frustrating, I can't do it, and then and then okay, well, there's still other dimensions of life, right? Life isn't all about writing. So I don't have to ruin my whole life just because I can't do one thing.
So I'm still like, my palms are hot. Like I can feel the heat. There's some heat hanging out with me. So my hunch is there's still, the heat has maybe moved around, but it hasn't cleared or relaxed yet. It's still kind of heat.
Yeah, it feels more like in my head, but it doesn't feel like anger anymore. It feels like I've lost the thread at this point. Right. We're not talking about stuff anymore.
Okay, so let's go pick up the thread. So the thread started at when you try and write things, it takes a bit of you said yes, spelling makes no sense. That was the
spelling does make no sense though. It's a very triggering for me.
Right, great. And it's enlivening for you.
Yeah. I'm very passionate about how spelling sucks.
Right. I'm like
Hebrew spelling makes more sense. It's just English spelling, right? I mean, probably other languages also. The Hebrew stuff is actually like, I can actually spell decently in Hebrew because it's very straightforward.
Right.
I mean, not well because my Hebrew's not good, but when my Hebrew was better, like I could spell in Hebrew.
So
just a couple letters, like just switch a couple letters. But
I agree that in many ways spelling makes no sense, but it doesn't rile me up. I'm like, okay, it makes no sense. Okay, whatever. It doesn't like get me passionate. So my hunch is there's still something there in spelling makes no sense.
Yeah, like I've been going through my life not being able to write. That's a lot of our society functions like assumes that you can write. Like if you're applying for jobs that are not, like if you're applying for any white collar job, like you need to be able to write. And writing is so frustrating for me. Or like even when the A circles, like they're always like, oh, well, what have you written? And I'm like, I can't fucking write. So it's just I'm at this huge disadvantage. And then I can talk good, but I can talk well, but it's very much dependent on the conversations depend on the other person. And so I need them to be able to ask the right questions and stuff and go the right directions. Yeah, it's a very frustrating experience. I am getting better though. Like I did write. I don't know if I showed. I showed you the thing I wrote.
Yeah, that was fun.
The fan fiction on real life.
Right. So there's sort of two things that happen as we hang out with this phenomenon, right? The one is the phenomenon of being angry and frustrated and why can't I write and writing makes no sense and all of these sort of nearby frustrations. The first is that we start getting used to it. Like I make my home here. Writing is, if it is true that writing is always going to be frustrating and it's always going to make me angry and I'm always going to be like this, then it's time to start getting used to it. It's time to start making it familiar and friendly, which it probably is a bit familiar, but can be even more familiar. And we can get to know what it is and what it's like. That's the first thing. And then the second thing that will start to happen is maybe you can start to notice why it is so frustrating or where the frustration comes from. Especially as you get familiar with it, you're like, yes, the familiar frustration of this, the familiar, as I start to write, I get frustrated. But it's from the familiarity that comes maybe some wisdom.
Okay.
Yeah, not sure where to go with that. All right, but there's
because I could sit in this frustration with you, but like if you're like I can't direct to where to go because I've already done all the things I thought of. And and even sitting here in the frustration, I think is taking the edge off of that. And then I imagine that next time when I go to write, there'll be It'll be a little bit easier.
You've had some practice hanging out in the frustrating thing.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, and it's like there's this kind of chipping away at it situation happening.
on the one side, either frustration has to be here, in which case sitting in it, getting used to it is a good practice. And on the other hand, if it doesn't have to be here, we need to work out how to release it or how to do something else instead.
Sorry, what? I was frustrated.
Okay.
So that's the other thing. I do notice, like I recognize this, that when I'm frustrated, it's hard to listen to other people.
Okay. So it's like the frustration takes up more of your attention, more of your space.
Yeah. And it takes also up of my internal space as well. So that I'm like, it's hard to listen to myself.
It's hard to listen to yourself. As in, when you have an idea, you can't listen to it so well because you're busy with this frustration.
Yeah. It takes up a lot of room and energy. So it's hard to think things through when I'm frustrated. And so you're asking me to think about something that you're not really asking me to think about the frustration itself. And the frustration itself is something that pushes out other thoughts. Yeah, now I don't have the big picture anymore. I don't know what we're doing.
Everything is just frustration right now, or
there's frustration, but there's I can see the frustration. There's some wiggle space, but I can't also look to see where I want to go. If that makes sense. Like I can see the frustration, but if I look outside, the frustration is just going to start doing whatever it's going to do. And whatever, then I'm just going to go do something else. Yeah.
Is there anything left to acknowledge in the frustration? So some part of you keeps wanting to be more frustrated, and for some reason, even though you keep paying attention to it, it's not quite getting that you see it or you pay attention to it. Is there anything else you need to do? I hear you, I see you, I feel you. The frustration. Let me rephrase that. So when you look at this frustration, you can see it, right?
Oh, I can feel it, yeah.
You can feel it, right? You can definitely feel it. Can you see it as well?
Visually?
Yeah.
Not really. There's a bit of a mental image of it.
Okay. Can you hear it? Like, do you notice how it changes the voice in your head to be frustrated or something like that?
It doesn't, it kind of blocks the hearing. So I can't hear it, but I have trouble hearing other people, and I can kind of I can notice that it's hard for me to listen to you.
Right. Can you notice the block? Like you said, it blocks the hearing.
Yeah.
Right. So if you've noticed the block, you can feel it in the body. Is there a block in visual? If I say, can you see it?
It's not exactly a block in visual, but it is, it's distracting.
Oh,
so like looking at you, it's it's actually pretty strong right now. It's when you're spacing out and you're not seeing through your eyes. So right. It's there's that.
So we're sort of building a picture of it down multiple of the senses.
So I can't follow it. Well, I can't follow it. It's literally taking up like too much processing power for me to see what you're doing.
Right. I'm just at this point just kind of hanging out with it. So we've got it. You can feel it. You can sort of tell that it's distracting the visual field. you can hear that there's a block there, or like there's a block in the auditory.
Yeah.
Okay, do you want to try a wild move? Try this. Try offer it some thanks for all of its hard work, because clearly it's taking up a lot of time, space, energy. Try thanking it for all of its good hard work. Just say, like, you don't have to say out loud, well, like internally say, like, thank you. Huh? It's a lie. It's a lie. You can't think it. Interesting. Well,
like I feel love towards it because it's a part of me, and I'm having good faith in this scenario, and assuming that what it's doing for a reason. And I love it, and I want it to have what it wants. I want it to meet its needs, but I don't see how this is helpful.
Like, you don't see how it is helpful?
I don't see how the frustration is helpful.
Right. Curious question. What's it trying to do?
I think it's trying to figure out how to write.
Can you try ask it? Ask it. What are you trying to do? See what it says.
What are you trying to do?
All right, let's try a different one. So let's get a little bit of movement in the body, right? Ask the anger how it wants you to move your body. And obviously, if it wants you to smash something, you can slow it down. But is there something that it wants you to do in terms of having your body in a different position?
Not really. Right now, it's kind of just wanting to be here, I think. Or what it wants from me is to be here.
Okay. Well, you're right to let it be here.
Yeah, it actually feels good now.
So usually when I talk about anger, I put anger very close to power or personal power. And so to have a bunch of like, oh, I can do shit is really quite exciting and enjoyable to hang out in. Once you start making friends with it, obviously it's like, I don't want to hit anything, I don't want to hurt anyone. But then as you start to hang out with it, you're like, oh, I can do stuff with this wonderful energy that I don't have in my body.
It's before that. We're before that now. So there's the thing, there's the anger, frustration, there's all that power, but it's not, I don't have access to it. Like I have access to it in that I can
notice it
and interact with it, but it's not mine. It's its own.
You said ego syntonic, like it's there, it has you, you don't have it in some way yet.
No, it's I'm really feeling like that dual awareness or the duality situation going on, where there's me and then there's the
other thing,
frustration, which I'm like meta aligned with, but not object level alignments, or I guess whatever level. The level that I'm at right now. It's like a family system. So there's me and then there's this other guy there. And we're different people that don't quite trust each other.
Overlapping in reality. Very much overlapping in reality.
We're both here and we're both taking up space and we're both keeping an eye on each other. And we know there's a solution, but also don't quite trust each other. So yeah, it does seem the thing to do is to like we're talking about before with the negotiations, is to still just kind of be together.
What chances are both of them both of you be together and just do nothing particularly, then you'll start acting in agreement anyway, just because as we hang out together, we start realign.
Yeah.
There probably are ways to speed up this integration process. Usually keywords of like love and compassion are helpful for creating two-way connection. Like, do you enjoy each other? Do you like each other? Do you trust each other? What else is there? Maybe like a phrase, can I help you, between each of them to the other.
It does feel like we're mixing. I get a lot of the visuals for for what I've been doing, I guess now, is when you add like a dyed liquid to,
and then like,
yeah, it comes in and does the swirling. But also as if those liquids were alive and had minds of their own.
Well, the body is very alive. There's blood pumping around all the time, that sort of thing.
Yeah, it's like kind of mixing, unmixing. But like, yeah. This is a common thing. This started happening to me after I was doing the jhanas for a while. But then I kind of got to this. I call them jhana swirlies. But yeah, it's like mixing. It feels like it's a gas or liquid. It's some sort of fluid that is like swirling within themselves and each other. And then sometimes I'm one of them. Usually I'm one of them. So I try to be like all of them.
Your conscious experience is more associated with one than the other?
Yeah, but it will switch. It's interesting because it's now I'm this one, but maybe before I was the other one, and in the future I don't know which one I'm going to be. So there's something about like honoring my current consciousness while not trying to screw my future consciousness. So like we want to be this system, like we want the system to be productive. Because if I start lashing out now, then I'm going to switch sides, and then that other side is going to start lashing out at me.
Right. So I want to say the trigger line again. You said spelling makes no sense.
Yeah, it doesn't.
Right. Okay. But this reaction is very different to where you were like, yeah, spelling makes no sense. Right. Now you're like, yeah, spelling makes no sense. It's fine.
Yeah, it doesn't, and it's important that you know this.
Yeah.
Don't know why. It's important that you know this.
Right. So, but what I'm pointing at is there's been a transition to your emotional relationship to that trigger. It's sort of, you're getting more settled with it. Like, yes, it makes no sense, but it's less of a big deal now.
No, it's still the same big deal, but it's less. There's less free energy, I guess, in that. Like, it's less. I'm less like It's more like it feels internalized. It feels embodied more. I don't know, but then is this all just justification for, like, it's just me justifying that I can't write well.
Well, that might be an interesting extra experiment to try and write something real quick and see if you can notice what happens.
Sure. Is that what we're doing now?
Yeah, why not? Do you want me to like what's the easiest way?
Yeah, can you prepare a document for me?
Sure. Pull up an empty Google Doc. Have Daniel.
Yeah, Google Docs work good for me.
I mean, I can pull up a Pirate Pad or something, but then we.
No, I like Google Docs. There's a couple of things they do that are really weird. That they don't capitalize I's. Which is bizarre to me. And then there's another one that they do it just feels like we're living in medieval Europe when they do this.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, in general, they're very good. It's very like, oh, this is what the monks, when they were hand copying things, must have felt like.
I mean, that would have. I just realized how much meditative patience it would take to copy documents, right?
Yeah.
You just have to write the same damn thing, or very similarly 10, 20, 100 times if you wanted the information to get spread.
Yeah. They would just sit and copy stuff all day. Like, that sounds like torture.
Yeah. Torture, yeah.
I don't mind. I love reading things and then explaining it to people. Like, I enjoy that immensely. But writing things is.
Yeah. I don't think that's going to open. I need to hit a button.
Yeah, I need to access.
Really cool. Welcome to technical.
Oh, yeah, the other one is the copy paste. They don't paste as formatting you, so you have to right click paste without formatting, which is also very bizarre. Some of these decisions they make are very bizarre.
One moment. The joys of technology. Okay, so really, when we started, I was like, oh, it's a reading thing, and then you immediately told me it was a writing thing, not a reading thing. So it was a different shape to what I was expecting.
Yeah, the reading is also like, I'll switch stuff. I remember, like, if I'm reading books, I need the characters' names to not start with the same letter.
Interesting.
Kind of situation. If the shape of the word is different, then I'm also okay. But I remember reading. I can't access the docs though.
Yeah. It's
I remember reading Prince Caspian from Chronicles of Narnia, and there's two characters, and their names sound similar, and they're both in the book. And I, like, the whole time, like for the first half of the book, I thought they were the same character, and then I realized that they weren't, and I just kept confusing them. I kept switching them. I couldn't keep track of which one's which.
Okay, you should be able to access it. And you should be able to edit. All right.
Dyslexia experiment.
Yeah, we're gonna see what happens, because we're gonna, like, and this is,
things that I do for YouTube fame.
This is a proper therapeutic technique. Like, when I work with people, someone has come to me and said, I'm procrastinating with my emails, and I've gone, first week or first session I would go, hey, let's see if we can work through it. Second session, they might come back and say, I'm still procrastinating. I'll be like, great, open up your emails. Let's just do it now. And then we can talk it through and see what comes up in you when you just try and do it. Right.
Yeah.
If nothing else, you'll send one email while we're talking about it.
Yeah, I've done this as well.
Yeah. Okay. So we've got let me share this.
But with like other things. Like
so we can actually have that so they can see. So this is a Google Doc open.
People are going to see it.
Yeah. So what happens? Try to start writing something. The story of, tell us, right? Maybe the story of when you first started to read things. Like you did just tell me it verbally. So
okay.
The goosebumps thing, And while we're doing this, we're noticing what comes up for you as you try and do it.
Right. So the first thing is like, how am I saying this?
Right.
So I have this urge to be like, when I was a young child. There's no E.
Right. Yeah. And so that letter just sort of ended up there. No worries. Interesting to note. Keep going. That's cool. You know, this is where we have live evidence of dyslexia here that we're studying.
This is on YouTube. All right, whatever.
Yeah.
Whatever. I'll just pretend I'm pretending later. When I was a young child having first tried. I got sentence right.
Aha. Ah.
Oh, oh. How do you spell aloud?
ALOUD.
Sorry?
ALOUD.
Aloud.
But I mean, we're learning, right? So we've noticed there's the letters are, what's it like? Tell me, can you describe? I'm going to hit stop share for a moment. What's it like? What's going on for you as you're trying to spell aloud? What happened?
Yeah, so I was, so when I'm first writing, I'm like, okay, how am I going to say this, right? So I started talking, and then I was thinking that I was going to, like, the way the sentence was going I was going to be trapped in it, right? I wouldn't, like, I'm thinking about the flow, the sentence flow. First, I'm thinking about what was the story. I'm like, well, what person am I going to say this from? Like, what perspective?
Mm-hmm.
So I don't like saying, I learned to read when I was younger. I was with my mom. We did this thing, because that's very boring, and I don't think other people want to hear it that way. Mm-hmm. So I like to do a little bit of a flowery embellishment. When I was a young child, having first learned to read, my mother and I would sit down, right, like where it's this tale, like I'm spinning a tale, mm-hmm. and I'm making sure the facts are correct and the vibes are correct, but it's fun. Like, I'm telling you this in a fun way. And so then I was thinking about that sentence and how it's going to go, and if it's going to. Sometimes I'll do circular sentences. Was I traveling further into my mother and I sit down when I was young to try and read, right? Like, so then it would be like the sentence would start to revisit stuff that I've already said, which is not. It's not that's not a good way to, like, you don't want to write like that.
Right.
So I'm like trying to construct what direction I'm going with the sentence, and then I want to say the word aloud, and then I want to say, so we had like young, so I'm saying the stuff, and now I'm having to move down the level of abstraction into what are the physical keys that I'm typing, what are the how do I spell this word, and it moves me out of that mindset into the how do I spell these things. And so when I'm going and I'm saying aloud, I'm like, okay, well, aloud, it's going to take a little bit of time to figure out how to spell it. Maybe I should just use a different word. Because if I can use different words, then I can just keep going with the flow.
There's a lot of work you're going through.
Yeah.
I want to check on, like, what are the emotions going through you as you're, like I said, this is a lot of work. How does it feel?
So at first it feels good, because I'm like, okay, I'm going to write this thing. It's a story. It feels good. I'm going to write the story. It's going to be interesting. And I'm going to, like, spice it up a little bit. So it'll be nice. People want to read it. And then like a thing happens and it's like a little bit less exciting. And another thing happens a little bit less. And then it kind of gets to be, okay, well, if I just finish this, then I'll get to have that dopamine hit that I promised myself. Mm-hmm. And then I just can't finish it. And then I feel shitty about myself. Everything just feels like crap. And now
right. So is that a frustrating particularly, or what's the emotion?
Yeah, it's frustrating in middle of it. It's frustrating because I'm trying to do this thing, and it's just like I keep getting like bogged down on things that shouldn't matter. And so you're trying to explain, like, even if like with this, or I'm trying to explain some idea. And then imagine, and then like it's like the microphone's not working, and now so the microphone doesn't work well, so it cuts in and out, and now the other person's distracted, and now there's so I'm distracted because something else is coming in, and then so we're trying to do this thing, and I'm also trying to figure out, well, what is the idea that I'm actually trying to say, and that's where I want to be. I want to be figuring out the idea and saying that. I don't want to be on all these other levels that I have to be on. Or else it's just not going to exist. And then that's very frustrating, because like that's the fun part, is like figuring stuff out and then sharing that with people. People like figuring out how to spell young is not interesting. It's not interesting. It's fucking arbitrary. Like, why isn't there an E at the end? Because there just isn't. And if there was, then why would there be? Because there is. Because some monk in the 1500s decided that there should be like young. Why isn't young Y-U-N? Y-U-N-G? Young. Why is there an O? It doesn't make sense.
Right, I'm with you. It does make sense. And also, there's more frustration in you than with me about whatever. This is how we spell it. So
yeah, because you're not having to deal with this. This is privilege. You have privilege. Here.
Well, when I learned to write, I learned differently to you, and I just I didn't have any of these problems, right? I just kind of whatever. I had other problems, and I solved them, or I don't have this particular type of frustration.
Yeah. Yeah, so that's why. So to people that have these problems, it's very frustrating, and to people that don't have them, it's like, okay, yeah, I remember when I was younger, it took me 6 months to learn how to do it. That was frustrating, but I'm over that. Like, this happens to me every single day.
Yeah. Yeah, and sort of thinking about, well, what do I do with this phenomena? I'm having a Daniel in front of me who every time he writes gets frustrated. I'm like, well, what is going to help with this experience that Daniel has every time he writes?
I don't know.
And because this isn't like, my original impression of dyslexia was like, it's sometimes depicted in movies that someone looks at a book, like a page of a book, and some of the letters like turn backwards and like change. This is
that part I've actually solved.
Right.
That part is solvable.
Right. So you're not having that part at all. You're having the like, I go to write, and it's like hitting a brick wall every time I do. It's like this difficulty every single.
That's where it is now. Yeah, there was a point where I did have that. And then a couple of teachers like got me through that. Where there's two tricks to that. The first is to don't read it, just look at the pictures.
Like look at the words.
Yeah, words are pictures. So don't. This is they actually do this with core, with the new thing that everybody hates. This is apparently how they teach reading now, where you just look to recognize the words, which is wrong. Like, you shouldn't be teaching kids this, even though this is how I read. This isn't how you should teach someone to read, because you do have to learn how to sound them out. You do have to learn the letters. But once you learn that, then you want to switch to learning the pictures, because there's still like, I'll still come across words I don't know, and I have to read them out. And then that helps with the recognition. It's like I get most of the sounds, and I get most of the length of the word and most of what's going on, and then I just recognize it. So you know that email chain that used to go around where it was saying, where it would have like a university discovered that you can switch the letters.
Oh
yeah. So it took me a couple, like someone sent it to me, and the first time I read it, I'm just like, yeah, obviously. Like, I didn't notice that the letters were switched.
Oh, really? Wow.
Yeah. It took me a couple of times to figure out that they actually switched a bunch of the letters.
Huh.
I didn't
This is
realize
the benefits of dyslexia.
Yeah, you can just switch letters and it's fine. If you do, depending on how you do it, like they did it. Like there's a whole like thing about this that I don't know.
Right. So the paragraph reads something like, a university study has found that if you switch the letters in the middle of the words, but keep the letters at the ends of the words in the right order, then you can still read the paragraph just fine. And for the whole paragraph, the letters in the middles of the words are messed up.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
right. So I want to say, no wonder you have difficulty writing if you hit this sort of like, it's like wading through the mud every time you want to like, oh, just walk over there, mud, like surprises.
Yeah.
No wonder it's difficult. We need to get this experience to be like walking is just walking or something like that.
That would be really nice. Yeah. I would very much enjoy that.
So options. There are always options when working with minds. The first option would be like, so you go to write things and you start walking through the mud, right? We could sit with that, process it until such time as that mud isn't mud anymore. It's just walking. Right?
That's what I've been doing.
Right.
That's sort of my thing is where when I get these inspirations, like with the AI and stuff, so then I'm more invested in it and I'll spend more time working through it.
Right.
And that does seem to, like, yeah, you put in the work and then training and that does seem to help.
So there's another, so it sort of depends on what I would like to do is work out why the mud keeps appearing. And there's an option of like, well, let's find out why the mud keeps coming back and sort that out, right? That's one option. Another is to like, you go to, I say walk over there, you start walking, suddenly there's mud. I tell you, stop, we're going to start again. And this time we're going to wait till the mud goes away and then we're going to just try and walk easy. And there's something of a method to just walk without hitting that like difficulty. Do it from the very easy place. And this is more like sort of Alexander technique has the, Alexander technique is classically someone is getting like a squash nerve, a sciatic nerve every time they stand up from a chair. And there's some way, what happened is they injured in such a way is that they squeeze the nerve every time. And then now when they go to stand up, they have a habitual like clench that squeezes the nerve, even though they don't need to be doing that. And so there's a way to stand up in a way that doesn't squeeze the nerve, but you've forgotten how to. And so we need to get you to sit in the chair and then now stand up and sit in the chair, get comfortable, and then stand up easy rather than stand up in your classic clench way. So the way in which you go to write a paragraph, you immediately walk towards frustration and start frustrating yourself. And there's got to be a way to just write stuff without walking towards the frustration. And that was a very long explanation, and I think I lost you.
Yeah, I mean, that does sound good. I'm skeptical. I mean, the other way I could do it is be dictating, but not really writing.
So if you were dictating, you could probably just write a whole paragraph, right? You already told me the Goosebumps story. You had no problem with it.
Yeah, but I don't think that would be good writing because I'd have to go back and rewrite it.
Maybe, or well, there's another skill of learning to get it down better the first time. Well, there's this is another interesting phenomena from people who write, whether you write it out once or whether you edit as you write. A lot of people, this is everyone's creativity is hampered by their inner critic. So if your inner critic is going just as fast as you're like, should I use this word? And your inner critic's like, no, that's a bad word, use this. You will have an inner battle and a very much difficulty in writing things because your inner critic is right up there with your inner creative. And so there's a movement of basically take your inner critic, tell it to hang back for a while. I'm just gonna gibberish stuff out. And then like really I want to integrate my inner critic, but before I do that, I should get it to step back a bit.
Yeah, I have done that. I do that sometimes. Like when we were doing this stuff yesterday, I was taking the notes and I'm just writing it down because I'm trying to. I was trying to take the ideas from the conversation and put it down, and I don't like that's not a good. I didn't do a good job, but I got down. I got down the things that I need to get down. And I can go back and turn that into something actually good.
Mhm. All right, there's another question here from, this is one of the, in internal family systems, a question we ask often of a part. So we're talking about the spelling makes no sense. That was our trigger. Hopefully you'll be like, yeah, spelling makes no sense again, right?
I'm glad you agree. This is what I'll say.
Right, so spelling makes no sense. There's some sort of frustration in there. That's what we're looking at. Can you ask this part of you, this frustration? What is it worried would happen if you didn't get frustrated at all?
Oh, I would just I would lose interest and stop doing it.
You're worried you would lose interest?
Yeah, if I'm writing and then okay, so the frustration I think is an emergent property. Like I don't specifically
You don't really
I
deliberately.
don't think getting frustrated is a good idea.
Right.
I do things and then the result is that I get frustrated.
Well, you sort of tie yourself up in knots a couple of times. That's
Yeah.
right, and then you ended up tying yourself up in knots. So maybe there's a better question there of what are you worried would happen if you didn't tie yourself up in knots as well?
I'm okay with not tying myself up in knots. I just
But
don't know how.
But we gotta get in touch with the part of you that is tying yourself up in knots, and then ask about.
Yeah, it's because I don't know. Like I'm just going in random directions, and then I find myself in a knot. Right, because I'm having to I'm constantly switching levels, like levels of abstractions and flow and flows and perspectives and things like I'm all over the place. So I'm not trying to be in a knot. I'm trying to have the thing written in a decent way. And because I'm jumping around because I'm jumping around on all the levels, it's not flowing properly. Like it's not integrated. They're not working.
The flow causes the frustration or the lack of flow.
Yeah. Well, I went and making some mistakes somewhere. Oh, I should have had attention here instead of there, whatever, right? Like my mindfulness is not
right. So let me repeat this stack.
Because if I was 100% correct, I'd probably be fine.
So let me repeat this stack because I think I got the sequence. So first, step one, Daniel goes to write things. Yep. Step two, Daniel.
Well, it's inspiration. Usually it's inspiration.
Okay. Step one, Daniel has some inspiration. Step two, Daniel starts writing. Step three, something in Daniel says, what level are we going to go for this at? We got to be up here. We got to be down there. We got to give context. We got to, right? And there's some jumping around. And then.
Like I try to craft the story, and then as I'm crafting the story, I'm writing it.
So then we start jumping around and crafting, and then step four, we've jumped around so much that suddenly I'm frustrated.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, like there's a lot of stuff goes into writing, right? Like you gotta have a good idea. Your ideas gotta be like internally, the whole philosophy, internally consistent, predictive, all that stuff. And then it's got to be written in a way that somebody wants to read it, and then it's got to have flow. It's got to be sensical, and then but that's just like the story. Then the sentences also have to have things going on with them, and the words have to have things going on with them. You don't want to repeat words. You don't want to. So there's all these things happening, which are all actually like very simple things that I can do. It's just doing all of them all at the same time is very hard. Even if I take off and say, hey, this is just a first draft, don't worry about it. The first draft still has to make sense in some way.
So here's what's interesting.
It has to be written in a way that I want to come back to it. That's the other thing. That I can't just write a first draft that sucks, that I'll just look at it and be like, ew, I'm not touching this.
So here's what I'm noticing. They're like, have the idea, I start writing, I get hit with this big stack of like, I do want to write well, and so I want to write in. I want to take perspectives. I want to take the winding path of metaphor. I want to take this. I want to take that, and so it's quite difficult because there's all these things ways I want to write, and then because it is so difficult, in order to resist the difficulty, I start getting frustrated, and for some reason, instead of staying with the difficulty and going like, "Oh, writing is hard. This is how it is," I get frustrated and then I get distracted and I'm off.
Well, there's no flow state.
Well,
it's not that I'm like, oh, this is hard. It's supposed to be hard. It's that there's no flow. And I don't mind, like, sometimes there's no, like let's say that last piece I wrote a while ago, there was a flow state to it, and it was hard to keep in the flow state, and I did do a bunch of rewrites, but there was a flow state to work with,
right?
And often, yeah, that one was like, that one was actually easier because it was a conversation. So I took for the people who weren't there, I took a conversation between two people that lasted, I don't know, maybe 5 minutes, and I turned it into 4 pages.
You told it very poetically.
Yeah, and I told it very poetically because there was a lot unsaid. And so I was like, okay, these people are sort of talking past each other. I want to fill in all the space, and then I turned it into a story that people who didn't hear the conversation could listen to, like a sort of a fantasy.
It was fun, is what it was.
Yeah, and I had a lot of fun because I had a lot of fun. It was something that was very frustrating to me. I've run into this conversation a bunch of times, and I wanted
people talking past each other. So
yeah, but like about this specific thing, and I wanted to explain it so that everyone could understand what's going on, without giving a solution, right? Because I'm not coming in and saying, oh, I have the answer. Like, I didn't write myself into the story. I just, like, this person had this perspective, this person has this perspective, and they're trying to get their perspectives across. And then as the reader, it becomes obvious what's happening. And that was like a real story. That was something I really wanted to say. And then yeah, I had a lot of fun dressing it up and being over the top about what's going on. I don't know. It felt like it felt like the thing was held. Sometimes when I'm writing, I'm like one of the layers of abstraction is gone. Significant chunk of the abstraction.
You were actually writing an event that had happened, and so you were recounting.
Yeah, I didn't need to know what was going on. Like, I didn't need to make up what was going on or figure out what was going on because I could just see it, right? So I actually just did the transcript first, and then, which was just listening to it.
He said, she said, he did. Yeah.
So there's no imagination, there's no nothing, right? I'm not being flowery. I'm just writing what I hear. And then I put in between the spaces, and just because then each paragraph, like, I didn't have to think about the overall flow or direction of the story or the structure of the story, because I'm just this person said this thing, and then here's what they're thinking, and the next person said their thing, here's what they're thinking, and I know that it's going to go in the correct direction, because, well, it's actually going to go in the wrong direction, but which is the correct direction for the story. Right.
All right, I want to write some more. Let's add another sentence to our writing piece that we've done, and see if we can again notice what's going on as we do.
And see, and now, like, I'm going back, I want to clean it up because there's all these wavy lines.
Most of it's the I.
It's the fucking I. Like, why would they?
That's really interesting because my Google Docs don't do the capital I, or like don't have a problem with the capital I. Sorry.
Can you write it?
I am a human.
No, you started the sentence, but you gotta go somewhere.
And I just did the capitals. I like
you did it yourself.
Yeah. So I guess if I just automatically hit the shift key.
Why should I have to do that? Why should I ever hit the shift key unless I'm doing caps, like a whole word or a name? Even names I shouldn't have to do. Like we live in the modern era. Like everyone knows this is how writing works.
Yeah.
They should do
All right.
this automatically.
Write another sentence and then let's
okay, when I was a young child, having first tried to learn to read my mother, sit down and read each sentence out loud.
Wait, stop. So what happened there? You put an IW. Obviously you were writing it was, but you sort of didn't write it and was. You wrote IW.
Yeah, I switched letters a lot too.
Right. So what was going on? What was going on internally for you when you wrote that? And it's not that I want to interrupt.
I was reading ahead, so it was, and then I did, and so I tried to write it and was at the same time.
Okay. Yeah, interesting. Right. So there's some sort of reading ahead, trying to write two words at once.
Yeah,
right?
that's the other trick I learned from the dyslexia, is that for reading out loud, I'm always looking a word or two ahead.
Oh, interesting. Because I don't, and my reading out loud might be slow or something. And so, but okay, so there's something there where you're reading ahead and it's causing spelling errors. Good to note. Maybe that's worth looking at, but that one doesn't seem super urgent necessarily.
It actually is helpful for me usually, or at least reading out loud, it's helpful. And reading to myself, I do the speed reading where I don't do it as much anymore. But when I was younger, it was like very much speed reading where I would just like there'd be paragraphs and I just look around at the thing until I got it. Like I didn't really read linearly.
Oh, interesting. Wow. All right, keep going.
Which I'm not saying people should. That's actually how they teach you to do speed reading, where you're just looking at the paragraphs, doing this stuff. And I spent a lot of time on Spreeder, which is it's amazing. It takes the it just flashes the words, so you can have. Usually, I think it's like 3 words you'll do, and then it will flash it for half a second, and you can read so fast like that. But you don't have time to think about what you're reading.
All right, keep going.
Okay. Did I get that right? Yeah.
Close enough. I'll let that one slide. There was something in there, but I'll let that one slide for now.
Yeah. Because I don't know how to spell this word, but I got it close enough, so it just switched. Which computers are amazing.
Yeah. So okay, there's something interesting there of don't know how to spell words.
Yeah.
Okay.
And like also I can't be bothered because I'm trying to think about what I want to do with the story. like what I don't even know what I'm trying to say. Like I don't even know what I'm trying to say, and they're telling me I'm spelling experience wrong. Like fuck off. Like,
right. So that's like
I don't have time for this shit.
That is way more frustrated of an experience than I think most other people are having when they're just writing down sentences.
Is it? I don't even know. I don't even know what it's like for other people to write.
Okay, keep going, and
you should do this one next. I can see.
Yeah, sure. I'll like find a story of my childhood to write.
It was a painful, unending experience.
I like how the name R.L. Stein is like a spooky name for me in my mind. I'm like, ooh, spooky name. Like those letters don't mean spooky, but they're so associated with the Goosebumps book that it's like, oh yeah, that was the spooky author.
Yeah, that was so good. I love those series. Like I can't read them now, but I'll, when my kid gets old enough, we'll definitely read those together. And then there was the adult ones. I don't know if you read that, Fear Street.
Oh, no.
Which is like the adult version of Goosebumps, and they had sex and stuff. I grew up religious, so it was an interesting experience.
Wild. No, I actually never got into Goosebumps myself. My brother did. but I never got into them.
Yeah, they were great. I didn't like the thing that really bothered me about it is that the last chapter they would always do. Oh, and then this new horror appears, like this new thing happens. Like they solve the day, and then the last chapter is the new thing happens, and it always bothered me because then they never went back and dealt with it, and it just felt like he was leading me on.
Yeah, well, that reminds me of Lemony Snicket, the series of unfortunate events, where it just kept dragging on and on and on.
Yeah.
Like it was a book that should have been less than one book, and it was like 13 or more books of, and then the terrible movie. Yeah, anyway.
I watched the TV show. I watched like a season or two of it. I don't remember, but
I like the characters having resourcefulness, but I didn't like the way it dragged on and on and on. And the representation of the rest of the world as being full of idiots. Like the kids were there was some mischievous plot, and there were 3-4 kids who were the sane ones. 3 of them. They were the sane ones in the whole story, and the mischievous bad people were doing the plot against them, and then every time they'd ask for help from anyone else, basically everyone else ended up being evil and or being murdered by the evil people, or useless. Like the strangers ended up being useless and being all like, ha, don't believe you, don't be silly kids. And then they were like, no, seriously, and the adults were like, don't be silly kids.
Well, let's take a moment to talk about that, because like as a kid, like that kind of does make sense, right? Like
maybe I read them when I was a teenager, and that already wasn't quite making sense.
Yeah.
There's like there's a subset of othering where you're like the other people don't understand that. At some point it's like, yes, that's true, and then later it's like, oh no, I was misjudging. There's layers to this, and they did have their own ideas, and anyway.
Yeah, there is that, but there is something truthiness about it when you're a kid, that like adults are like oblivious, or which I don't think it's actually true, but it does feel.
You can feel that way very strongly, yeah.
Yeah, and I think that's a huge problem. Because you shouldn't, like, there's something wrong when that is true.
Yeah.
I don't know.
All right, keep going. Write a bit more.
Okay, the book was by Goosebumps. The book was Goosebumps by R.L. Stine.
That sentence came out pretty cleanly.
Yeah.
Like there was no spelling errors. There was no having to delete things or rethink things. It just kind of.
Yeah. And then those things get me excited. They're like, hey, Daniel, you can write. Like, let's just do this, right? And then I'm like, okay, like let's flow. Let's do this story that I want to do. But even so, like I'm constantly having to go back to like rereading what I'm writing, and then what is the story that I'm trying to say. Because like I don't know what happened next. I have to rewrite what I have to like get back into that flow.
Okay. So there's a couple of extra letters coming in and getting deleted, but
yeah, and I don't even know why I did that. Because I don't know why I did that either.
Right.
And now I'm like, what style am I gonna write? So I feel like I'm doing this, whatever, like pretentious, like upper class thing, where Whereas if everyone wants to hear, like my childhood, when I was a young child, having first learned to
First learned to read.
What?
Having first learned to read, my mother and I would sit down and I would read each sentence aloud.
Yeah, like, but this is like a style, right? People write the style and then you read it at the bookstore. You sit at the bookstore and you read it to the people and they're like, oh, his story was so deep. I mean, it is deep, I guess, but I don't know. There's something pretentious about the way they do that.
Right. Okay. You want to do one more sentence and then we'll see what we can look at. Great. All right. So there you go. I devoured those books when my mom was busy putting her children to sleep, my siblings. I was busy reading all the books I could get my hands on. Great. That wasn't so bad. It took a bit of time, obviously. Your typing speed is not all that fast. And I must say, having a fast typing speed will make a difference for getting stuff out. But that takes work. And my typing speed is
the typing speed's not the limiting factor. Like if I could type really fast, it wouldn't save me that much time because most of my time is going back and rewriting the words or getting it, like thinking about what the word is, like or how to spell the word. It would save me some time, but it's that's not really the limiting factor.
Right. Do you want me to type a thing and you can see?
Yeah.
So this is Daniel may have never seen other people just like write stuff and may not know what to expect.
This is one of the things that do is try to do stuff with people so I can see how they work.
Yeah, totally.
I'm doing the AI world building thing is because I can get a bunch of people and we can work on it together. And I can see how to do stuff.
Eliot writes an example for Daniel to see how he writes. Do you want me to write about this episode?
Sure.
In this episode of Psychotech Live! Woo! We have been working on Daniel's dyslexia. We now see it a bit differently. It looks like he's struggle. I feel like I should also point out that I have a different keyboard layout, and so the spelling errors might be different to what you might anticipate on a QWERTY keyboard.
You're using Dvorak?
I am using Colmac.
What's that?
It's more efficient than Dvorak, is what it's meant to be.
Oh,
Not only am I nerd, I'm more nerdy than that. At one point, I kind of got curious about it and then got into it and I was like, yeah, why not? I'll just try that. I still know QWERTY, I'm just a bit slow. And then Colmac is meant to be faster again. It didn't actually change my typing speed. Let me tell you, there's an entire subculture of people learning different keyboard layouts and having fun with that. like relearning different keyboard layouts over and over and over. And it was interesting because now that I have two maps for where the keys are, I can sort of switch between them, and then sometimes the maps cross over. Like I'll be typing in this layout, and then I'll hit a letter that is actually in that place in the other layout, and I'll be like, oh, interesting. Like I can see it different. The whole idea of keyboard layouts feels different to me now that I know two of them, back from when I knew only one of them.
It's like,
I imagine has some similarity to speaking two languages, where you go to reach for a word and you reach for the one in the other language.
Yeah.
Or the concept, you're trying to describe something and suddenly you're in the other language.
I never wanted, like, I always wanted to like kind of learn, but I was like, never did it because I don't know if it's just like, it just feels like it's gonna make things harder. I don't need to add more.
All right, do you have like questions about me writing this paragraph? Like, I'm clearly not having the internal battle like you are. I'm not as frustrated. Like, I just kind of, I was like, oh, I'm gonna write about.
Is this writing interesting to you?
This?
Like when you're.
This wasn't the most thrilling topic or anything, but I was like, that'll do. I'm just trying to write a paragraph, right? If it, do you want to write about insights? Let me write about. Let's try and like.
Write something that's interesting to you, because like this is like I'm writing like this is you're sort of just stating facts.
Right. Okay. So
something that.
So let me try again. In this episode.
Like write the description. Write the description.
Trying to. I had some theories really. I had some theories about what's going on in dyslexia, and I wanted to test test. Wow. Kill them out. Maybe if I could just find the root of the, right, so now I don't know the word for this. Root of the frustration, difficulty, or resistance. And I could completely resolve the frustration, the dyslexia for them. Right? My approach is a mix of internal family systems, somatics, emotional processing, compassion.
Yeah, you're not going back to the previous paragraph and having to like pick up your flow every single like 5 seconds.
No, definitely not.
I have to do that all the time.
Wow. Well, like, hey, cool. What's going on with that? Why? Do you have some insight as to why, or what's it like?
Yeah, because I'm looking at the sentence or I'm looking at the word, and if I don't concentrate on writing the sentence in a coherent way, or the word in a way that at least I could figure out what I was trying to write after, it's like it's just going to be like it's going to be nonsense,
right?
And then I'll have written a lot of nonsense.
Right. So let me try with the metaphor here for a moment. So it's like I'm trying to walk somewhere. It's just that I get frustrated in making each step. And so as I take a step, I'm trying to pay attention really hard to this step, and then I'm forgetting where I'm walking in between each step.
Yeah.
So there's something.
Yeah, or like navigating, like when you're walking through a forest and there's all this stuff everywhere, you can like focus too much on watching your step and not watching where you're going.
So I have a hunch right now that Daniel just doesn't know how to walk, and his higher adult self is like, of course I know how to walk. You walk like this, and every time you like try and do that, you just keep hitting this like, oh, I have no idea, I don't know. Like, right? So what we need to do is kind of get you back to the beginning and like relearn how to just walk like a baby does. And then
Yeah.
as you do that, it'll be like you'll get the adult version of like, oh, I can just put this into flow and just easy. But right now you don't have the basics. And so you're trying to like walk without basics.
So you might be right. And also I've heard this multiple times. And also I've done this multiple times where I'm going back and relearning how to do the thing. And it does help, but
right. So here's the thing. I don't actually know. I don't know how to learn to write because I did it so long ago that I was a little kid. Right? Like just the basics, the really like I want to put together words into a sentence, sort of basics of writing. I just have no idea what it's like.
I've learned this multiple times, multiple ways. And the truth is I can do it, but I can't do it well enough that I can't do it unconsciously.
So let me try this. So as I think about like how do I do it? How do I write? I have an idea, right? So here's one in my head I've been wanting to write about. It's sort of the transmission chain between community, like message sender and message receiver. So you have one person who's I have an idea, and then I'm like, here, I'm going to express it. And then so step one is having the thing in my head. Step two is like I'm going to put it into words. They're like I send them through the air and just like I project these words out into the air. Step three is then like receiver hears those words or receives those words. And step four is receiver like processes those words, right?
Yeah.
And this is a fairly simple model of like communication in the arc. And what people sometimes do is they think I'm a bad communicator, right? So there's something wrong in my step two here, right? Where for some reason I can't send a message. Every time I try and send a message, there's something between my step one and step three that's going wrong, right? Other people like,
if the person's not receiving the message, then it could be any of the.
Well, right. So maybe this,
right. It's a broken telephone. You don't necessarily know where the cut is unless you start doing the different.
I really like that. That's a great metaphor. There's a broken telephone. You don't know where the break is. Yeah. Right. So
yeah, you have to do the differential. This is for everything. Yeah.
There's a version of
doing differentials. Yeah.
There's a version of like the problem is in section one of I don't know. I think I know the idea, and then I go to tell someone, and then it comes out in like, well, it's kind of like I'm not sure if, and then I don't actually get to step two. I don't really get it into the words so well. So actually, behold, my problem was in step one. I thought I knew the idea, but I didn't. Or step 1, 2 sort of translation.
Yeah. And the thing is, you have to have all those steps working, or else it doesn't work.
Right.
Look, I can do any of those steps, but to do them all at the same time is difficult.
Right. So this is an idea that I've been meaning to write about. Right. So I actually kind of have the idea already. I have almost the whole idea in my head. That now I'm like, oh, I need to work out which sentences to construct it in what order to actually get that down on paper.
Okay. We should do this together then.
Okay.
It's like a thing.
So I'm like exploring my writing process, which I'll be honest.
Okay, so this is a real idea. I like it when there's real ideas because then this is actually like a stress test for what's going on. It's actually very easy to write if you're just writing random things.
So here's an idea. Here's what just happened. What flashed into my mind is, and it was like instantaneous. You should first write out the list of the 4 steps. That's what flashed in. And it was like a visual representation of like the 1, 2, 3, 4. In sending a message, there are 4 parts. Right. So now that flash that came into my mind, I'm putting the words down that respond to and describe that flash. Yeah. Step 1, having an idea in my head. Step 2, wow. Head. Step 2 is putting the idea into words and sending it through the air. Step 3 is so here you go. I lost my place, right? I've gone like, you heard me, I went, right? Step 3, but I have like, I'm up to step 3 in the process. So it's like, here I am like with the visual of 1, 2, 3, 4 going like, how do I describe number 3 now? That was me losing my place. So I do lose my place. So step 3.
Yeah. Yeah, but you've lost your place because in the idea land, not in the words land.
There's something in
and that also happens to me.
There's something in translating my mental, like my image of it to the words. And I've done it like twice now. As I go to start the sentence again, I'm going to say again. So step 3, I still don't know which words go in this sentence yet. Right?
Do you know what the idea is? Even if
it's the number 3. It's the listener. So the person has to, like, words fly through the air and like land in someone's ear. You know, that's the listening step. But again, I'm like, how do I put that into words in the context of this list? I still haven't, even having said that out loud, I still don't have those words. And so there's some like, oh, now I need to just pause for a moment and do that in order to get those words in order. So, and I've just reread the last sentence, putting the idea into words and sending it through the air, receiving the words out of the air. Right. So what happened there is what I actually needed was the first word. I needed the word receiving that described the words going from like sending to like being captured. And as soon as I was like, oh, that's what I want to point at. Then the word receiving came into my mind and I was like, oh, I want to write receiving the words out of the air. And that was it. Mm-hmm. Right. And then step 4, actually, I already have it, is interpreting.
Yeah. Another thing I noticed is like you writing this is that if I was writing this, I would have to like to narrow it down to this because I would be putting in way more steps. Mm-hmm. Right, because there would be the thing, and then there would be me translating it to idea, then there would be me deciding that's an idea that I want to say, then there would be me like conceptualizing the idea in a way that I can say it, then there would be me conceptualizing it into words, into well, it's conceptual like doing the process in which I'm imagining how the other person could understand this concept, and then I have to take the concept and translate it into words, and then I have to say the words and like pinging the other person to see if they're listening, and then like for me there's like a million steps here.
Yeah.
And then the whole thing backwards because the other person does that.
Right. The whole thing goes in flip when they send a message to me and then I receive it. And like, it's amazing. Human communication is like magic, actually. The fact that it works as well as it does. Remarkable.
It's yes. And also like those are all the steps, but also you don't actually have to do any of the steps. Like you can just do random shit and see what happens.
Like, yeah, and learn from it. And yeah.
And it's often more efficient to do that.
Yeah. The point of this scaffold is to give you like a bit of a perspective on, like, if you're like, I'm bad at speaking, well, actually there's a whole chain here. It may not be you, it may be other things.
Yeah.
Considering the other things, maybe you can speak
correct.
and maybe you can't speak. Who knows?
This is correct. Like there's a whole chain of events and you want to like differential, like narrow it down. Can you do this? Can you do this? Can you do this? Because if you can do it, like often it might be like people often have bottlenecks, right? So there's, oh, I can't communicate because of this thing, and then they can just practice, like they can just sit and practice that skill for a while, and then they'll get it, and then their communication just jumps hugely. I do feel like this is a lot. Like I found actually like the spiral dynamic stuff. I know I always like go on about it, but it really does. It helps me like it helps me with the whole processing the process, where I know I can just not think about a bunch of things because I'm like, oh, they're on this level. It's just how do I get my point across on this level, and then I just do that, and then I don't have to worry about all this. Like I don't know, you know what I mean? Like there's just a whole part of reality that I can isolate and then cut out. I don't know if that makes sense. It felt a bit rambling.
Right. That's my like step one. In step one, I might think I have an idea internally in my mind. It makes sense. And then when I go to tell someone, I don't seem to have the words. I stumble and find out that I'm actually confused about what I was trying to say. Somehow my mental representation of how much I knew was overconfident, right? There's something wrong in step one. In step two, so what am I trying to say? I don't know. So here I am. I've written the sentence in step two, and I actually don't know what my next word is.
It's putting ideas and sending it through the air.
Right. So it's obviously a like.
The block would be that I have the idea. Wait, are you saying like your writing process, or are you?
In my writing process, I'm up to this. I got to this moment and didn't know what the next word in the sentence.
Right, because you're switching flows, right? You went down into the step one flow.
Yes. Yeah. Or the upper level. I'm going through steps to the lower level. What is step two actually like?
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. So you're that flow exits, and now you've lost the frame, and you got to refine the frame.
Right.
So you're going to go into step two flow now, and then
obviously step two, we've said it before, it's about putting the idea into words and sending it in the air.
Right, because you already wrote that down, so it's easy to pick up the frame. This is a huge thing I do, where it's making the flows easy to
right. So in step two, again, see, I can talk about where I'm at, but I haven't done knowing the next words bit yet.
Yeah, but we're also having the conversation, which is very distracting.
Yeah, it's juggling.
Yeah.
So what do I want to describe? I want to describe that thing.
Well, you look at two, right? This is what I would do. Is I look at two.
Mm-hmm.
I'm trying to describe the block, because it's what's it like to have a block. Mm-hmm. So what's the block for two? What's the block when you put the idea into words and sending it through the air?
So there's probably two. One is too few words, and the other is too many words, or too non-specific words. There's a sort of a couple of like the words aren't the right words.
If it was one thing, what would it be?
The words aren't the right words. I mean to say pray.
You can't say the right words. So that would be either you're missing words, you don't know what they are.
Yeah.
They're not
say words that nearby. We will specific, maybe I don't know what I mean.
If you don't know what you mean, I think that's a step one.
It's partly step one, or maybe
I would consider that like it's a step two block. I guess it's a step two block where you're trying to say the thing. You're trying to say the thing, and as you're trying to say it, you realize you don't know what the thing is.
Well, I don't know which words describe the thing I'm trying to point at.
Right.
I know that, like, I pointed at the thing, right? Yesterday, I was like, oh, this is what fire is. And I'm like, fire. Oh, yeah, that's fire. And now today, I'm like, what is fire?
Yeah.
Hot.
Fire. It's
reddish. It's orangish.
Yeah.
Oh, I know. I put my hand near it and it started to hurt. Right.
Yeah.
But I didn't
necessarily stuff this and that, right? Like that would be a.
But yesterday, I obviously knew what fire was, and today, as I try and describe it, now I'm like, oh, I need better handles on it.
Yeah. You're looking for handles, but you should still know what fire. Like if you're trying to describe fire and you don't know how to describe it, but you still know what it is, then that would be a level two block.
Yes. Yeah. I don't know how to describe
it. A second, but if you're not. If you realize you didn't know what fire was in the first place, that's when like someone like really cares, or someone explains it really well, and then you get it, and then when you try to explain it, you realize you don't actually know what it is, but you knew what it was when they were explaining it.
I've done a thing here, and I've reorganized the sentences because I realized this one went at the front of the paragraph. In step two, the words aren't the right words. I don't know how to describe my phenomena.
Yeah, and then to me, if I'm writing this, I think what's coming up for me is why am I writing this? Like, what's the purpose of this whole thing? Like, who's the audience member?
Right.
Because this is the same system, right? Like you're writing the step 2, but you're writing it for someone or some group of people. And so if you want to get the good words right, you have to also know what words they know. This is also a problem because I grew up religious, so I know, like, growing up, we speak, like, a lot of my language was used, had like Yiddish and Hebrew words in it.
So I'd like to point out, interestingly, in this moment, when I was in the last section writing the like summaries of each of the steps, I got stuck at step 3. Now that I'm here, I'm not stuck at step 3. Like, maybe because I worked it out back then. Now that I'm like, oh, this is easy. This is all about watching the words land.
Mm-hmm.
Which is which, like, in step 2, I got stuck at around this moment. But in step 3, I'm like, oh wow, I'm not actually stuck here. How interesting. In step 3, I've sent the message and I watch it land. The other person needs to be undistracted. That is open ears. They need to speak the language. So here, to be able to access the sent, right? In step 4. So immediately, before I even wrote in step 4, there was an image in my mind of a person, like the message going into someone's brain and having to be like detangled or whatever. So I have my vision, my mental model of the thing that I'm about to write before I've written it. In step 4,
That's step 1. You're doing step 1 well.
Well, I don't know, actually, because I had that mental model before I even started writing this piece. I was like, oh, that's what I want to point at, right? And then it's a matter of picking which words point at the thing, right? Classic step 2 thing.
Yeah, but in each step, right? Like, you have the thing you want to write, but you don't. Then when you're going into step 2 and you're articulating it, you, like, there's still the same thing again, where you're going through the system where you're like, okay, well, what is the way that I want to articulate it? Or it's fractal to a certain extent.
Yes. Yeah. But but before I got here, I knew what I was writing. Quite a lot of what I was writing. And when you do it, it sounds like you don't know so much. And maybe that was the type of writing we did. So maybe that's not true. In step 4, the person overlays the interpretation. My own emotional language may get in their way of understanding.
Yeah, I often don't know what I'm writing. That's why the last one was easy for me, because I knew exactly what I was writing.
Right. Will stop my intended. And it's been already topic mixed in there. Okay. So what did you said the broken telephone metaphor, right?
Yeah.
Old fashioned. There only needs to be a break somewhere in the line for a. So I realize this paragraph should be right at the top, right? Message sending is like an old telephone, should be right at the top.
Yeah, like, for me, I don't get why we're writing this.
That
would be I would want to know. Is this like a blog post that we're going to put on our website?
So this is I wanted to write this blog post for one of my other blogs already, and I've been meaning to get around to it. The next bit. What the heck? I need to change my language here to English Australian. How do I, oh man, Google, thanks Google. We'll do this later. Oh, that's not what I wanted. Okay. What was I saying? Right. So why am I writing this? So at this point, I've set, what I've done is I've made the model first, and then there's a whole bunch of insights that can come about. Like if your message isn't getting through, is it your fault? Or is the problem on your end? This is something that you need to upgrade into your mental phenomena of yourself. Is it your problem? Is it their problem? Just check that you've got each step right, and some people, they're in hippie land, right? They smoke a lot of weed and they're like, yeah, man. And then the idea doesn't come out of their mouth in clarity.
Yeah.
Some people, the idea is good, but the words are like butchered. The words they're over the top. They're exaggerating, or they're undertones. And this is one I really like.
Distracted by your words.
They get it distracted. One I really like is when they trail off and the sentence isn't so important, and so it gets softer and softer before they finish what they're talking about. And like certain cultures do that more than others. It's like an invitation to be spoken over or something. But there's like, oh, my sentence just got quieter because I didn't have confidence in what I was saying. Like, okay, that's something I can fix, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then there's
that is fixable, yeah.
And then you can fix step 3 as well, right? You can be like, oh, this person is not interested in what I'm saying. I'm gonna change the topic, or I'm gonna like add more emphasis so that they do listen and like emphasize this is important. You should listen to it, right? I can do stuff about step 3. I can also do stuff about step 4 if they keep judging me badly. Can be like, oh, they have contempt around me. I need to change the tone of this. I need to like change the tone of the relationship so that they actually receive.
Yeah. That's when I've seen much more attention.
These are the insights, and you're absolutely right. To make this a better piece of writing, I should put the insights earlier, right? Maybe the first paragraph should talk about like some of the insights you can get about each of the steps.
Because it's just very matter of fact, this process of you're wanting some frame for why someone should care about this.
Right. So this is a blog post. Maybe I'll finish it later and I'll write it up about it. But that's sort of like, that's kind of how I write. Very different to how the point is that it looks different to you who are struggling with the sentences often.
Yeah.
And I have
to say in the previous one.
Yeah. Okay.
Maybe. Otherwise, I would have done an outline. Like if I was doing this, I would have done an outline first.
Right. I didn't do an outline. I just like, this is most of the shape of the document. It's still going to start here.
Well, you're starting with the idea. You wrote down the idea, and then you kind of did do an outline because you did in sending a message, there are 4 parts, and then you did
right,
and then you fleshed out each part, and then you're stepping back and you're, why am I even saying this?
Right.
And now you're going to do an intro to that. And sometimes I'll do it that way as well.
Yeah.
But I usually like to start with, why am I telling this?
Yeah. So after having written this and maybe talking more about the examples, I might reorganize it so that it's much more compelling to read. You get the insights earlier, you get the insights all through it.
Yeah, you want to hook, right? So it's always, the first sentence is always to be in. What is it? The first 5 seconds is getting the attention, so it's interesting, so they want to stay. And then you got 2 minutes, but really with writing, I think it's shorter. To give them a reason why they want to stay. Like why they want to stay for the next 5 minutes or whatever. I think it's like 5 seconds, 30 seconds, 2 minutes, and 5 minutes, and then by that time you're just do the thing properly and they'll stay.
Yeah. I'm like, oh, we still haven't quite cured your dyslexia. What do we need to do to actually?
So what's your diagnosis?
Right. So there's still that frustrated thing. The like, let me repeat the trigger from earlier. Right. Spelling makes no sense.
Yeah, that's correct.
Yeah. He's like,
I feel heard.
Right. But, so now you're
that's
like,
not that interesting to me because that's just one of the things going on. I don't even know if that should be the salient thing.
Look, if you had come to me and you were a writer and you had already written 7 books and you were trying to write the 8th one and there's $1 million deal on the line, and you're like, help, writing has always been really hard to me. What do I do? I would go through every single thing in your head. I'd be like, oh, spelling makes no sense. Great. Let's work through that until it's not a big deal anymore. Then I would work through the layer thing and make sure that like jumping layers is super easy and fun, and like exploring is really like a journey and rather than frustrating. Then I would work through the frustration and make sure that all the frustration is actually in the right place. And then like I would look for other things that are really blocking you and make sure that, and I would move all of them out the way. And once they were all out the way, your dyslexia would be hopefully much reduced. And if
then you could tackle the gestalt of it.
Right. If there's anything left that is also frustrating you, also getting in the way of writing, I would tackle those. It'd be like, how's your routines? How's your lifestyle? Do you drink heavily and then feel hungover during your writing hour? Do you even have a writing hour? Like, amazing.
Yeah.
But this is like, I would go through all of these details and make sure that like we'll clear it out of the way. Call it like a rationality philosophy. But I'm standing here with like, I feel like Moses with a stick on the hill saying, oh, like Gandalf, right? You shall not, like, we're not leaving here until we go through everything that we can find that's a problem with the dyslexia and clear it, you know? It's like a
long time.
Well,
yeah, I get your point.
I'm describing the method here, right?
Yeah.
And ultimately, there's something important there that if you can't stand still and go through those things, there's something else blocking you from even doing that process, you know?
Yeah.
Like at some point,
we used to call it like an UG field,
right? The whole, yeah. There's in the rationality sphere, it's called an UG field.
Yeah.
But like the field of like I walk through it and it's like, oh, I don't want to. Yeah. But at some point you'll probably hit I actually don't feel like writing, and at that one is a real tricky one, right? Because you came to me with dyslexia, and if you're like, oh, I don't really need to write, I could be like, well, he doesn't really want to write, and I could let him go. Okay, I could be like, that is also a block. We've got to work on that one too.
It could be or not, yeah.
Right, and ultimately that is a block, because the more you let yourself get away with, I don't really feel like writing, the less you're going to write. Right,
and also you could say that about eating poop. So
yeah. Well, actually, I can dig in deep and double check if I do want to eat poop, and the answer is probably
I don't want to eat poop. Oh, that's a block. Let's go through and sort of out. But yeah, you need like you could. I think it's like sometimes you want to do something and you don't want to do it. Like you're ambivalent about it.
Mm-hmm.
Then there's something happening. Yeah.
Yep. So anyway, that's how I would sort of dig in.
But whatever. I have a YouTube channel, so I don't really need to write anymore.
The real friends were the ones we made along the way, anyway.
Yeah. But still, I'd like to write because I think there is something about writing. Like there is, but even the channel, like it's not condensed, right? Like I think we are going to want to make videos at a point where we condense a thing where it's 10 minutes or 15 minutes of condensed material.
So let me ask you another question. If you think about writing, so imagine, is there something you want to write at the moment?
Well, I'm gonna be doing the AI world, but
right. So imagine you're good news. Now's the time. You're literally about to sit down and start writing that thing. How does it feel? Does it feel good, or does it feel like ugh?
I feel nervous, but cautiously optimistic.
Okay, so moderately good. The best. I'm like, what would the best way to feel to have that moment of when you're going to sit down? What is the maximal best way to feel to get the best writing outcome? And cautiously optimistic is probably not it. Nervous and cautiously optimistic, but it's better than like frustrated and like unfilled. Like it could be a lot worse too.
Yeah, there's some excitement there. We haven't like the group hasn't met yet, so that's in the process of happening.
Right.
And so we're going to do a timeline, and then we're going to divvy up there's like a bunch of things that need to be written, and then we'll sort of collectively decide what we think the future of AI is going to be like, and then we're going to divvy up. Different people are going to do different parts of that.
Nice.
So I'm looking forward to finding a part that I'm looking forward to writing.
Yep. Okay. So if you were,
I'm also nervous because I want the group to work out. So this is somewhat of a fail position.
So there's two techniques that I've just thrown at you. One is the imagine. So imagine doing the thing, right? Does it feel good or bad, or what does it feel emotionally? And so the imagine technique, right? So imagine doing it, and like if it feels bad, I'm just gonna have a lot of a harder time doing it than if it feels like good and exciting.
If it feels bad, I'm just not gonna do it.
Probably not. Right.
Like, guys, I can't do this.
Right. So that's the imagine.
I don't think so. Like that comes into a lot of the deciding. Like for me to do the whole thing by myself feels overwhelming. It would feel like a lot of pressure. It doesn't feel good.
Right. And so the second part there is the emotions, right? So the good emotions to feel in relation to this. The object here is writing this AI competition, right? What are the best emotions to feel about it? And how do you help yourself have those ones towards it rather than the like dyslexic, frustrated?
Yeah. I think I know what you're talking about now. Like the last one, it felt like there was a story that I wanted to say. Like, and
that was a really good feeling. It really motivated you to go with it.
Yeah, because I showed it to some people and they were like, "Oh, you should do this," and I'm like, they're like, "Oh, this thing doesn't work with this theme. Like, you should change it to that." I'm like, "No, this is the story I'm trying to tell. I will throw away the theme and change it to something else because I need to," and which I ended up doing because this was the story that I wanted to tell.
Right.
And when I get that, and when I can see that this is the thing I want to tell, people need to see this. And I felt very passionately that people needed to see that story.
Right. So you got to cultivate that feeling that like people need to see my idea.
They need to read that. It was important.
Yeah. But you need that emotional relationship to what you're writing. You need to cultivate more and more of that. People need to see it. I need to write this down. I need to share this idea. And that'll be super motivating for you.
Yeah. I don't have that yet because there are things about AI, but it's hard for me to pinpoint exactly what are the things I think people are missing about this conversation.
As it is, you're not super procrastinating about the AI thing, so I wouldn't like really force you to cultivate emotion.
Yeah, but I think during that discussion when we cultivate this stuff together, because I was talking to the guy and he was saying things, and I'm like, I actually very much disagree with you, and I think it would be really cool in our situation because there's two different point of view characters that are going to be writing. So he could do a point of view character and I could do a different one where we disagree with each other. And that would be part of the world building, right? There's two characters that don't agree with each other in this world. And that's the mission, that's the thing they want. Nice. So our conflict would be, and it would make it interesting.
Nice. Good. Anyway, so that's these are some of the ways I would work. Oh, the bonus. I was gonna do so this is one of my hobbies. Whenever I find a weird disease or a weird condition, any medical, knowing we've done this episode of metaphysical anatomy before, right? Anytime I find a condition, I type into Google spiritual meaning of insert name of condition.
Okay. So now we're getting a little woo territory here. Let's see how this goes though.
Right. So we've dug into dyslexia, and obviously when you do this, you get the weirdest of web browsers. Like you get the funniest people saying ridiculous things. Excitingly, I'm gonna pull up one that I know. That sort of, it has like a compendium. There's a couple of people. There's this is one who've got the like, here's a list of conditions and what they spiritually mean. And obviously, if you look at enough compendiums, you start getting used to them. But I hope they have.
I'm on it. And WebMD says what causes dyslexia? It's linked to genes, which is why the condition runs in families. This is like if this is one of those like explanations that mean nothing. Like everything is linked to genes.
Right.
The condition stems from different parts of the brain that process language. Like this might as well be spiritual mumbo jumbo.
Right, because we now have a label for it. It comes from genes, but in the rationality, we call it a applause light, like it's a showstopper. Now I know.
Yeah, would you
hold up the sign?
It's semantic stopping point.
Right? Yeah, right.
Yeah, I know this because I got this wrong on Rational Jeopardy, and so I always remember this.
Nice. I'm gonna just check this one list.
Oh, yes. Okay, now I have that. The condition stems from different parts of the brain that process language. Imaging scans of dyslexia show that parts of the brain that should be active when people read aren't. Okay, well, which part is that, and how do I stimulate it? Wait, but they don't say which part of the brain. This is bullshit. If you know which part of the brain doesn't light up when you have dyslexia, put that in the comments. And also, if you know how to stimulate that, also put in the comments. Because if I can get it stimulated mindfully and know what it is, then there's a chance that I could replicate that. That's actually the easiest way to. That's actually the easiest way to do these things. Is to just activate the parts in association until they self-organize.
Turns out they will self-organize as well. I've said it before. I believe that minds are quite self-organizing if you give them the opportunity to self-organize.
Right. If you give them all the pieces, they self-organize as well. If you take away a bunch of the pieces, they don't do a great job. I mean, they do a great job considering, but.
Here we go. So this is the sort of site you'll get. Spiritual dyslexia, person's personal story. This is not it. I was hopeful because it's in the heading is in all caps, and I was hopeful that that's the classic. Here we go. Big infographic. Blah blah blah. What you really want is the like. I cured my dyslexia, in this case, condition with spiritual practices or something.
Yeah, I would like that. Because what's it called? For people that think we're too crazy, myopia. There's myopia, which is nearsightedness, which means you can't see far. So most people that wear glasses, that are not reading glasses. That is curable. Like that is curable. There's this guy on YouTube called Myopia is Mental, and he trained himself to not need glasses anymore.
Oh, nice.
You actually recommend. I don't know if you didn't recommend the channel, but you recommended something. You recommended a meditation around that, which I practiced. And then I was looking for other stuff to help fill it, and I found this guy. I'd actually love to have him on the show at some point.
So it turns out the phrase spiritual dyslexia is itself been grabbed and coined and sort of to describe people who are not good at finding true spirituality, I think.
People with dyslexia aren't good at finding spirituality.
Like specifically a condition called the spiritual dyslexia.
Is that related to regular dyslexia?
There's a Christian Science Sentinel here. It has dyslexia heals. Healed lifelong dyslexia. There's a YouTube channel there. There's God's way of something. That sounds good. As a avid psychotechnologist, I appreciate that I can read sort of anyone's anecdotal report of how they did a thing and try and decode for the modalities that they've used. So this person has used craniosacral, which is sort of energetic massage modality.
Oh, craniosacral, that's where you do, so the cranium is the skull, essentially. And the sacrum is that triangle bone at the bottom of your, like at your butt, essentially, like on the back of your pelvis, kind of. It's the second way of describing it. It's not the coccyx, which is that small, like that tailbone, but it's the one that touches right above it. And so there's a thing where they'll touch both of those. They'll touch your, if you lie down flat on your stomach, they'll touch your head and your sacrum at the same time. They'll do a wiggle where they like stretch your spine out, and it actually feels really nice. But allegedly, it has a bunch of things that I think are not really necessarily scientific.
So there was a lady called Louise Hay who herself wrote a list of conditions and their spiritual causes. So I'm hoping that on that list had dyslexia, but perhaps not. Oh, look, that's a good one. This is a ravenstarhealingroom.wordpress.com, which is basically the compendium of authoritative scientific information. The metaphysical cause of attention deficit disorder. And what you get here is sort of like a word salad of stuff. And the key would be to sort of go through it and find. And unfortunately, it's a bit like horoscopes, right? You read them and you're like, oh, that one really fits. But there is often something useful if it does feel like it fits to.
Sometimes those word salads are really useful.
Yeah. And then you can like.
They say a bunch of words and now you feel better from it.
Yeah, and you can sort through your own condition and find a strategy for resolving it.
Yeah. But I do. Yeah, but there is something about, I don't know. This doesn't feel like.
Yeah, look, I'll be honest. This one's a little bit long. Push long.
Last week we did a word salad with the game B stuff. That was fun. But yeah, you need a lot. Yeah.
Nope. These are.
Sometimes you read things and you get feelings from them, and then that's like the feeling is what they're trying to convey. And so if someone has a feeling, they put a bunch of words down, and then you get a feeling from it. And don't look too closely at the words, but now you have a feeling, and that's what I was trying to tell you.
Google very helpfully telling me there is no cure for dyslexia. Google, be quiet. I think there's some weird, those what is it, magnetic thing where they put the magnet on your brain and then you feel different. Those sorts of things can kind of cure dyslexia.
Is that true though? I'm skeptical.
I don't know about long term. I think you can get yourself into a state where you don't have the dyslexia. Although you, like the way we explored it, your dyslexia type phenomena seems to be a bunch of different things going on at once that are sort of interacting with each other, making yourself have a hard time. Different to the like letters spin backwards sometimes sort of phenomena.
Yeah, what does that have to do with magnets?
Well, so even the way that you described it, right? So you go to try and write, and then your brain like has a traffic accident with itself trying to decide what it's trying to do, right? So if you use the magnetic stimulation of your brain and keep yourself in a like no traffic accident state, then you will go to try and write, and it'll like you won't have a traffic accident. You'll just write things. That's one way to consider.
If I what? Sorry, I missed that.
Right. So you need if you're using the magnet thing to prevent your brain from having the traffic accident, and you just like, oh, I'm going to try and write now, then you may be able to write.
Okay. Yeah, but can magnets prevent traffic accidents?
Right. Does that cause a permanent shift, or is that just a cool state? Great question.
No. Even if it was even if it was a temporary state, that would still be useful, because it would be like taking a like, let's say sometimes actually one of the things I do is I'll smoke some weed, and and that will relax me and put me in a creative state, and then I'll be able
Right.
to do. But there's like there's a right dosage, because if I'm too high, I can't do shit.
Right. If I'm too high, I just
Because then I'm high and I can't do shit. Like I can't do the stuff properly. But
right.
sometimes I'll smoke a little bit. It'll get me relaxed into that state, and then I'll be able to write better. And then it wears off, but I'm still in that state.
Mm-hmm. Right. So the question is, how do we get you to? Well, so if we like let's go with the traffic accident metaphor for a little bit, right? So we did this thing where we got you to we what's that trigger line? Spelling makes no sense, right? And immediately, like, we're in the middle of the traffic jam, we're in the accident, right? And so what we tried to do is to stay there. Like sometimes I try and deal with writing, I end up in the traffic accident. And so we tried to build up some resilience of staying there and going there and being there. Yeah.
Yeah.
Great.
Yeah, and that stuff is helpful, but I needed you to keep that container. I can't keep the container and do the thing at the same time.
Yeah, interesting. So that's one thing we tried to do, right? The next thing we tried to do is we got you to write things, and we watched the traffic accident happen in real time.
Yeah.
Right. There's a deeper problem of the traffic accident happening at all. Other people don't have this car accident thing going on.
Yeah.
They don't have the like multi-car pileup. They're just writing stuff. And the question is, why on earth? And I don't know this answer right now. Why on earth is Daniel heading immediately into a multi-car pileup? And is there, when I was talking about like, can we reteach you how to walk? It's like, how do we let the cars go on the road without a multi-car pileup, right? That's the question.
Yeah.
Like we need to learn to drive cars.
Like I'm playing 4-dimensional chess on a 3-dimensional board, and
right.
then things don't work.
Right. Interesting. So maybe there's a possibility of adding a dimension to your mental space.
That would be nice.
Yeah.
I love that dimension.
The way I would do that is quite literally with that awareness practice of spaciousness.
Okay.
So if you think about, so we've done it before with Daniel, not on stream. Awareness practice. If you think about
spaciousness, that's actually the first thing we did. The first time I met you.
Yes.
Spaciousness is me.
Right. So we're gonna do it now real quick. We're gonna put our awareness on all the walls of the room. So the wall behind us.
Okay. Well, like walk through. Okay.
Might as well do it.
So let's do it so the viewer can enjoy it as well.
So put your awareness on the wall behind you.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. And like we sort of like grab it, and it's the spidey that can go back there.
I can feel the wall behind me.
Right.
I'm literally touching it, but let's say I'm not touching it now.
Right. You know, it's the mental knowing it's there, right? That's the important part. We want to grab the walls beside us as well. Some like mental awareness of they're there too. The one in front of us, and then the ceiling and the floor as well. So we've sort of got this big bubble. That's step one.
Yeah, it's like a external proprioceptive awareness where
right.
I'm able to, with my eyes closed, I'm able to sense where all these things are.
Or at least I'm able to believe that I can. I don't even know if I can. If you ask me to like,
well, I mean, you should like you should still be embodying. At least like I've been in this room a long time. Like this is the room where I spend a lot.
You should know.
A very integrated mental map of what.
Right. So the second thing we want to do is go beyond the boundaries of the walls and just keep going. So we're looking for boundless space, is what it's called.
Mm-hmm.
And just keep going further, like boundless space, infinite, boundless, endless. Think universe big, like just lots and lots of space, right?
Mm-hmm.
And it should feel like sort of a little relaxing to have all this space. You know, bearing in mind we want up and down as well, like every direction of boundlessness. Why are we not going up? You're not going up enough. Like further up.
It feels like there's there's the ceiling.
That's weird. Try like just go an inch above the ceiling and see what happens.
Like my body or my awareness is an inch above.
So you said it feels like there's a ceiling, right?
Yeah, I often
try to go like wherever the ceiling is. Just try and go like a little bit past where the ceiling is and see how that is.
Put my head through it or
expand your awareness through to the other side of the ceiling.
Okay.
So weird. There is, like, I can see that you're sort of perceiving the ceiling thing.
Yeah, it does. I often get this sense of having to bend to not hit the ceiling.
Mhm.
I don't know what that's about.
So what we're looking at here is somewhere in your mental map of spaciousness, there's a block, or there's a ceiling. We've called it a ceiling, we've called it a block.
Yeah.
Yep, that I can see that. Like I said, why aren't you going up? Because I could see you weren't going up. And now you've described it as a ceiling, like, well, okay, there's something there. Try hang out with it for a little bit, see if it'll do something different. My sense is it's got a little bit of like dizziness around it or something.
There's a thing happening that if it was happening to you, might be dizzy. I also get motion sickness as well. So
You can probably work out how to resolve your motion sickness.
That'd be nice, because I can't do roller coasters, but they look like fun. But I have done them. I have done like low grade ones, and I get really sick.
Wow. Yeah, I don't know what this ceiling thing is, but try go up. Try go like 100 meters up. Huh?
Oh, I know. Because if I go too high, then I lose contact with my body.
Oh, that's okay. It'll be here. Like you can come back or whatever.
Oh, but I need my body for things, because I'm gonna have to spend time with my wife after this and my kid.
Oh, I don't think you'll leave permanently or like be detached for ages. I think you'll like, especially if you're doing this.
I get yeah. I'm not saying like my spirit is gonna leave my body. Like I mean I get like I'm not gonna die. I get
attached or something.
I get in my head.
Right.
So it's like when I smoke pot, sometimes I'll get in my head and I'm just doing the head things, and just like the pure intellect, like the classic rationalist, just pure intellect, and forget that the physical world exists, kind of thing. And then there I would be like, oh, realize what's going on, and then I would ground. Like I'd be in a situation where I would need to do a grounding technique, and I wouldn't necessarily realize.
So maybe now's not the right day to be doing this. Seems like you're not really going down either. Like, what if you go down? And to be honest, most people have never put their awareness downwards and gone like, what? I can do that? Doesn't seem to do much, but for some people it's surprising, and other people it's nothing.
Yeah, I feel good about this, like where I am now.
Okay. So, okay.
We are coming at the hour.
Yeah.
My wife texted me that she wants to eat wings.
One question I wanted to ask, right? So we grabbed all this space, and now if we do the thing of thinking about writing, are you about to just like the car accident, or is there going to be more space and these cars will have space to go around each other?
Yeah, now I'm getting all that anxiety coming in.
Right. But there's an opportunity here to have enough space for them to not crash into each other.
Yeah, the anxiety, it feels like the frustration when it spreads out becomes anxiety.
Interesting. And then we can work with it more. Remember, the trigger line was spelling makes no sense. Right. So what's it like having that now as opposed to back when we didn't have all the space?
Yeah. It's like there's like what do you mean by that?
Right. You said it in the beginning. What did you mean?
Yeah, I know what I meant. I don't know what you mean. or not that I don't know, but it's like I got that narrowing of the eyes, like
you got like a vantage point, then you're looking at it differently, I think.
Yeah, like what do you mean? Like Yeah. The truth is anxiety used to be much worse. I have worked through a lot of that.
Right.
But it's there. I guess I'll just hang out with it while I'm doing the other stuff.
It'll probably sort itself out with a bit of time. You've done a bunch of work with it before. Ultimately, I'm like this is showing my bias here, but I err on the side of many things are solvable. That like Gandalf thing of you shall not pass. Many things are solvable. But
yeah, it's amazing how much. Yeah, like when you sort of start picking it apart, how much of the different, because it's all like a knot, and if you start solving little pieces of it, sometimes like eventually the knot will just sort of fall away.
Yeah. All right, so I'm gonna stop digging into dyslexia. That has been a long exploration of dyslexia and what it's like on the inside.
Cool. Yeah, I really enjoyed that. Thanks.
See how you go. Maybe you'll just feel like writing's easier after. Can always hope that I did nothing and something happened anyway.
Yeah.
All right. So good.